Hi, decoders. This week we're going to look at the difference between knowing we have a bunch of baggage versus actually looking right at that baggage. It's a big difference. So let's begin.
Hi, I'm Kiran Trace. Welcome to Humans Decoded, a story of hobbits, fairies, elves, dwarfs, gnomes, and humans. If you get lost at any point, there is a deep dive on all the different avatars in episode 1. It includes notes. Thank you for joining us in a fun little chat about the vast potential of our human makeup.
I'm really happy to be here with Leela and with Cami today in our makeshift homegrown studio. Before we record decoders, we are always like, how is it going to sound? We've got propped up mics and sitting on bed sheets, and it's a very slip-knot situation here. So forgive us our audio glitches. We're doing the best we can. I'm pretty happy to talk about this subject today because, of course, we're in class, the accelerated healing class, and this is, a beautiful practice that we start class with, really giving ourselves the time to watch our baggage play itself out. And in class, I give these very specific details, these 3 to 5 things that you're specifically watching for, and gives you some tools. But even if you're not in class, wow, there's such a difference between just witnessing your baggage, your stories, your pain bodies, as we call them, their beliefs, play themselves out in real time, versus the kind of story that goes like, yeah, I know I've got it. I know this is my sickness. I know I'm working with this, okay? Just like leave me to it. Yeah. Which is an indulgence. So we call it exposure when we're looking right at it. And wow, does that come along with some really powerful support and relief and freedom and all kinds of things. I'm so excited to dig into this today.
Same. I mean, there's so much out there that is labeling itself as exposure and shadow work and digging up your stuff and exposing your stories, but it's just indulgence masking as exposure. And I don't want to come across as, oh, we're the only ones doing the actual, exposure, but I don't know. I don't see much real exposure out there in the world.
Yeah, I think that sometimes exposure it's a really raw thing. It's like, and even as Leela's mentioning, sometimes we can even be in a place that's calling it exposure, like therapy, or this is not to paint all therapy this way. It's just to say that we can sometimes find ourselves in places where we're just getting people that are agreeing with our stories, and instead of actually like using that space to watch how your system is composing a whole artificial story here on top of reality to play out its own worthlessness and unlovable or, injustice play. But, man, the exposure of it, to actually like call it out as it is brewing thoughts in your system is so raw, and the story is so habituated. Like we just jump in so quickly and indulge, that very deep habitual role. Like, no, the world is on fire, like, no, we really are in a recession. Like, no, it really is like the end of mankind. Like, no, like to actually like turn and notice that there's an indulgence right there.
Yeah, it's so easy for it to find proof for itself, right? It's so sneaky. It seems so true. And I keep having many moments of like, oh, fuck, here I am telling myself, a story that's not true at all. And it's just this, like Kiran is saying, it's so, again, I want to use the word naked. It's so naked to just leave the moment as it is and not layer some sort of story on it. And I find that indulgence or that story layer, it always takes itself quite seriously. It's quite like, this is not how it goes, or I don't know, this is real, this is important. And as soon as I recognize that movement, it helps me smell out that I am telling myself a story. I am indulging my bullshit, because exposure doesn't. Exposure has a different sensation to it. We're going to talk about that later. And as soon as I hear somebody, I don't know, ask me like, can I analyze something with you? Or can I process something with you? I was like, no, thank you. I'd rather not. No debriefing,
I think I asked you the other day.
Yeah, I think that I was like, that's like yesterday for Leela. Like, some people are emailing her like, can we debrief this thing? It's like, no. And then at the same time, there's like, Leela and I had a conversation last night in which it was definitely an exposure conversation. And it was very like, man, I came in with such a sneaky story. And there was all this little not safe, like tied in there, sneaky little tendrils of not safe. Being like, given the current state of the U.S. economic policy, and I think that this might be a great project to kind of buffer, that, and had this very logical, like, is like exactly. On paper, isn't this really good? It's so reasonable. It's so, it's smart. It's whatever. And it was like so awesome to like, just like pop the story, and expose the roots of not safe that had been like planning this whole little thing. But the three of us here, we love exposure.
It really feels like when you're going to expose something, like you're actually giving something up, like you're really going to lose out. And it's really easy for your pain body to jump to really dramatic conclusions. Like, if I expose this, they'll know I'm a fraud and abandon me. And up against that, it can seem really challenging to expose your stuff anyway. So it's hard. It's like not always the most comfortable thing. It's not.
No.
It's usually not the option that you want to take. You're like,
not at all.
We don't
giving up that project here. It's like a little death, right? Like you die a little bit.
It's only in the like pre-moment, before exposure that it has all that. It's like, that's the pressure just before exposure. But then once it pops, it's awesome. But I agree with Leela. It's sort of like, call me when you're finished with that story, man. Because like, witnessing indulgence is such a rash. For me, it's more like that. Like when someone's like, can we talk? Like, oh God, there's some level of indulgence and story on its way here. And like, I need to be honest. I'm feeling, this is how I'm feeling right now. It's like, oof, it's like a whole lot of smelly, not safe, injustice or worthlessness trying to, tell its story. And, exposure just, it doesn't need this drama. It doesn't come with the drama. It doesn't pull people aside to whisper, right? Like it's right. It doesn't need these pauses, these dramatic pauses.
Exposure is almost it's just instant, isn't it? As opposed to indulgence, where everything is this long process. And as Kiran said, it's dramatic and it's just, it wants to keep itself going in a way. It doesn't want to let itself go. It rather replaces reality with a story, like Kiran shared about her project. And then I find these layers, they also feel so personal. It's like my life, my work, how I will get, I don't know, what's the word? Validation or all that stuff. And
how I've been treated, or how I
me.
And also me, but it wants friends and you. So it loves anyone who'll listen to its story. Like it'll pull people in. It wants friends. It wants to fight for its right to exist. Like, but you don't understand. Like this time it's real.
Yes. Oh God. It reminds me of an oopsie moment, an embarrassing story to share with y'all. How much the story wants itself. I had this ex-lover and we had plans for a weekend, and then he said, "Oh, I'm not available. I have to take some time for myself." And then we agreed on just meeting on one day instead of 2 days. And then, like, shortly before we met up, he sent me a text saying, "Oh, I have to leave by that and that time because I have other plans." Of course, I was deeply offended. It was very personal. I was like, "How dare you? This isn't fair. We had plans. You said you need time for yourself. And here you go, make other plans. Fuck you." And then my pain body, all that, was looking to go to a friend and tell her the story and wanted her to agree with me so badly. And she did. But all that is just pain buddy drama.
One of the things that comes along with exposure, like, it's squirmy, and that moment just before actually exposure comes, it's like you want to run anywhere else. It's a place also where shame descends. Like it's the subtle leak of this really captivating energy, shame. It's like, I'm so ashamed that this is still happening. Like I'm so ashamed that whatever, I've done this work, or I've, whatever. And this is here. And so I'm not going to look, it's like, it's just sort of like, I'm just going to hide out here, So it's like we catch in the corner of our eye that little piece of worthlessness about to go yell its story. And then you're like, I'm so ashamed. And then so the shame is like, we just double down. I'm going to, like, instead I'm just coming at you. I'm just coming at you, And then there's like shame under that, it's like a shame sandwich and worthlessness in the middle. And then there's a total lack of authenticity that shows up. And, we really see this with institutions, right? We see this with, whether it's education or politics, we see this definitely in religions. Hello, Catholic Church, immense shame about its history and its, violating and violent background. But like, instead just coming at you. Because it feels like, just like all the things we're saying, it feels like death. Like if I actually own up to the bullshit, like, man, can't control that.
But nevertheless, like actual exposure, it's always this beautiful invitation and opportunity to live more freedom and to live more authenticity. Like Kiran said before, it's a lack of authenticity, the shame sandwich or the indulgence. And then the sort of antidote is exposure.
And it's immediate, as we've been saying, right? It's like that pop. It's only the moment before exposure that all this is playing so loud and squirmy and painfully.
I also had this instant, like literally a few days ago, where I was meeting with, these guys, Leela and Kiran, for a little podcast meeting. But I was fresh out of a shoot and I was sort of feeling a bit discombobulated. And in my head, I was like, oh, I need transition time, but also isn't the spring beautiful and la la la. And so like I put the phone on video and was showing these guys on video chat, like, look at the spring flowers and look at the evening and I love Bristol and da 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 da. And then I got into the car to just have the meeting while I was driving. And Kiran was like, hey, Cami, you can just show up as yourself. Like, you don't suddenly have to turn into like podcast Cami and like, And then something came over me. Like, I just had to pull over straight away. I had like a little like bubble of tears and just this like exhale. And then it was like, oh, okay. I totally hadn't seen that. And now there's just intimacy with the moment. So for me, it looked like, oh my God, I can just show up like right here, a little bit discombobulated from the film, like a little bit emotional, but also really happy to be chatting with my friends in a meeting. And it was just the most delicious drive home, chatting to these guys. It didn't feel like a meeting at all. And at the same time, while I was enjoying this sort of very like beautiful, expansive freedom, because that's what coming into the moment is, there was also this voice like, Kiran should have let you have more time. It's not fair.
I know that
you just
voice.
finished a film. Like, there was a fight scene and that was a lot to take in and you need time. Da, 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 da. And it's like, that voice can always be there, but it's like the difference between sort of letting it steal that moment from you or just being like, oh, this feels like being naked, but you're right. Like, I don't, like, I want to be here with the moment.
Yeah, I love it. I love it how we're really talking about like exposure is about being here. There's more freedom, there's more authenticity, versus these layers, as Leela's been saying, like layering all of our stuff on the moment. Because what we're really, we're talking about authenticity, which is such a big theme here for us decoders. And I think of authenticity a bit like a scale. Like if you took like the current, United States President Donald Trump and, he's like a 0, like there's not an authentic bone in that dude's body, right? It's just absolute clown posture, and that's like, it doesn't matter, like doesn't matter who you vote for, but it's like, this is a really postured individual. And then if you throw somebody up that's like, and it could be like, Obama, somebody that a lot of the world related to. So it feels like there was more authenticity there, but in truth, it's still politics. Like in reality, up against, some like a normal person in their life, he's still only like a 3. Like there's a lot of posture, there's a lot of role play. It's pretty low on the scale still, especially if you compare it to somebody like, I don't know, Jamie Oliver as a beautiful chef, and a lot of people in the world know him. And he's just this very endearing, sweet, kind of like boy next door kind of guy, and so maybe he's a 5, for authenticity. There's still a lot of performance, that guy's got a lot of doing a lot of roles, a lot of his, his stuff, versus like, especially if you're looking at someone like Brené Brown or Mel Robbins or a Martha Beck or, Esther Perel, maybe. These are, people who are very skilled at exposure. But it doesn't mean that they're not riding out a bunch of their bullshit still. Like, so maybe they're a 7, they're really high on the scale of exposure. And then maybe you have somebody like Elizabeth Gilbert. She wrote Eat, Pray, Love, and a few other, beautiful books. And she has a podcast, and she's just so exposure based, like it's like she's just digging down for authenticity, digging down for the moment, digging down for the present moment as best as she can, and so she's really high on the scale, like 9.5 out of 10, and so I think it's wonderful to like recognize that under your bullshit is just the authenticity of yourself in the moment.
And that's always such a relief and always such an exhale. ultimately. It's so much lighter and just, yeah, so much better. Because holding your story, adding the layers, it's always a bit of an effort. It's always a bit heavy to, defend my bullshit. Like the don't you know is heavy.
And it has like real life detrimental consequences. I have a very dear friend who's pretty much willing to let 15 years of friendship go because they just don't want to drop their story. And on my end, it's infuriating because it's like, oh my God, if you were just the tiniest bit willing to look, it would just pop and we could go and play in the sunshine in the real world instead of in this sort of drama they're choosing to inhabit and infiltrate into like every area of their lives. And then that's kind of the reality they end up living. So it's really sad to watch on the outside. And it's like, if you just had the courage, like if you just had that much more willingness to really look, because then, yeah, when it pops, it's instant.
It's nothing.
Yeah, exactly. It's absolutely nothing. It's light. It's like, it's ridiculous. Like, yeah, it's nothing.
And I love how, like, the point is all we're saying is look. We're not saying do something about it. We're not saying change your life, change your activity, change it. It's way simpler than that. It's just look, directly look, instead of, I know. But the indulgence is that sweet, sweet drama. Oh, and we're innocent in it in a way. It's like every book you ever read, every movie you ever saw, every show you ever streamed, like it's all about story, dramatic story. That's what makes it captivating and exciting and alive. And the mind, and especially our bullshit, says like, oh, the present moment, like, it's like, I visited it once or twice. I saw it.
I know.
I know. Exactly. So it is amazing, however, to have peace is an amazingly beautiful thing. It's very, very deep and really amazing. And it's surprising how challenging and courageous it is to live it, because basically it means we have to keep exposing these stories, the drama, we got to trade it in. But if we're not available to question our BS, we're not going to be in the present moment. Like, we're not going to have that freedom and space. It's a trade.
But it's so worth it. Like, it's as soon as you catch yourself telling the story, like as soon as you sort of come unstuck from it and see it from awareness, it's usually so funny. Like, it's such a hoot. And it's such a relief to like be able to laugh at yourself. Like, some of the best belly laughs I've ever had are in satsang halls when somebody's like, oh my God, I believed my own bullshit. I mean, yeah, like it would give any comedian a run for their money because it's funny. Like, it has a sense of humor. I think that's a real like green flag about peace.
And then it creates actual exposure, the looking, the turning yourself inside out almost. It creates such a deep connection. It creates such intimacy with the moment, with what is, with other people who are witnessing you, exposing your stuff, and with yourself as well. And I find that's, I don't know, to live in that quality of connection. Yeah, I'm willing to turn myself inside out over and over and over and over again.
Contrary, indulgence isn't a great way to create any kind of intimacy. I remember I was staying at a friend's house and she made me a coffee, and then I got into her bed and I was about to have the coffee with her. And then her friend calls her up and she's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I have to take this." And then they gossip about this other girl for like 20 minutes. And then the visit's over and my friend leaves and I'm just like left with this coffee. And I'm like, dude, like, you just completely missed the moment, which was like here. And I don't think there's any more intimacy with your friend. Like, you just trauma bonded. Like, that's all that happened when you just indulge each other's stories.
Yeah. You know, in a way, exposure can be a bit like fart jokes. You know, like it's just like look at this fart. Like, look at this big old fart. You know, like, and I agree. It creates a community and a unity. You know, I think it can, and even be deeper. It can be, you know, sometimes during our summer retreats. I'm thinking last year about one of our students who just had this massive exposure. Like, he just saw his bullshit and then he just exposed it. And then like later he got voted like hottest at retreat. You know, like it was so beautiful, you know, like,
Yeah.
and we hold that all very lightly. It's not like we have scorecards at the end of the retreat. But the point is, like, the main exposure is you to yourself. You know, not lying to yourself, like seeing your bullshit. Although it is fabulous if you can create a community around that, a community that is available for your fart jokes, you know? And it's especially true for men. I want to say, like, it's wonderful if men can, you know, inside of their friendships, create an opportunity where they really appreciate the exposure, where the other men are inspired by the exposure. You know, this is really helpful.
Yeah, and as Kiran said, it's mainly exposure you to you. So don't walk around, expose other people's stuff. Like sometimes, I don't know, I see that sometimes in somebody who just learned about exposure and then they walk around and poke their finger into everybody's stuff. And it's like, no. That's not what we do.
We're not going to recommend that. You're likely to get a fucking punch
unless
in the
it's
face.
the agreement, you know. If it's the agreement, sure. But if not, no, that's not very elegant, skillful.
Yeah. I feel like it's worth talking a little bit about vulnerability too, because, you know, I personally define vulnerability as authenticity plus fear of authenticity. You know, like, I'm afraid of this authentic moment. I'm afraid of my moment. I'm afraid of my fart. You know, like, I'm afraid of what is true. And we call that vulnerable, you know, because pain body itself is so afraid to expose, right? So it's like all this not safe, all this, you know, I'll be crucified, I'll be stoned, I'll be, you know, like it's getting like that moment before the exposure where it's layering in that shame sandwich and that I'm going to be abused or abandoned for sure. Like all of that stuff gets layered in there. But the actual sensation, if you get over that moment and go for the exposure, is that sensation of like, thank God. Like last night, you know, like having Leela help pop my like on paper project sound so good. Man, it was fantastic to like throw that whole project away, like just drop it, you know? Even though I'd spent like the last week sort of daydreaming and listing and, you know, getting like all these people involved. You know, it's like, man, the moment that popped, whew, thank God. Back to the simplicity of reality. Back to the, you know, that freedom and space. Back to like, oh, the peace that's just right here.
Yeah, and back to just authentic Kiran-ing, right? not holding a shape or playing a role. And I don't know, that vulnerability piece, I think people make a whole production around it. It's like there's all these books about it. There's all the programs and workshops and stuff like that. But yeah, ultimately the point. It's just about authenticity, and that's it. Period.
And it feels like from authenticity comes great art. Like I can think of a lot of musicians that feel authentic, and it's just that much easier to connect with their music. Yeah, like just people who wear their heart on their sleeve, like Adele or Billie Eilish. Like it's just, you can't help but connect with them, and it feels like they have to have a degree of vulnerability, like, yeah, to just show up as themselves. And I feel like that's what creates the connection. And I remember, it feels like I remember it like I was there, but it was on TV. But I was watching Glastonbury last summer.
The Glastonbury concert in the UK, yeah?
Yeah, like epic festival over a week and best acts in the world. Dua Lipa was on, and she had like the most sculpted abs you've ever seen, like 18 costume changes, everything choreographed to perfection. I mean, she's been making like nonstop hits for years. And she was great, and she had the audience going. And then the next day, the headlining act was Coldplay, and it was just a whole different kettle of fish. Like the connection with the audience, the like heart explosion from everybody, like the way people would sing the anthems along with Coldplay. Like I was moved to tears. It was just like an entire different like show, even though it was like same stage, one night apart, but like the experience was radically different just from all the kind of heart stuff that Coldplay has in their music.
Which is the authenticity, right? Like they're just very present, very there. I agree, like what you're talking about. Like, Billie Eilish captured a whole world with her Barbie song, because she exposed the voice of despair, for all of us, and touched us, like she worked on finding this very strange falsetto. And in that falsetto was literally the sound of our despair, the pain body of despair inside all of us, and then she wrote the lyrics to speak of that deep despair, and whatever, it like won a Grammy, everyone plays it, it's like, it's just so epic, but it was an act of exposure and a beautiful movement there.
As opposed to Shakira. On the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
And I think another great example for just fully authentic beings are kids or babies. They're not, they don't know what hiding is yet. And they're sort of built for exposure, and they point out what is hiding. And I'm just remembering how as a kid, I would be sort of my teacher's worst nightmare because she was a bit overweight, and she would talk about that, and she would say, I'm not supposed to eat chocolates. But then I saw her eat chocolates during the class, and I would say, but Frau Tony, wieso esset Sie immer Schoki? Like, Miss whatever, why are you always eating chocolate? You're saying you're not. Just pointing right at what she was trying to hide.
Yeah.
So annoying. But it's such an inspiration, I think. It's like what we're doing here on this podcast. Like, we're exposing our stuff. Like, you guys, you decoders, you hear so many embarrassing stories from us. And we hope it's inspiring for you to sort of go and do the same. Like, Kiran exposing her stuff inspires me to expose my stuff, inspires Cami, inspires blah, blah, blah. It's sort of snowballing through the whole world is my naive hope.
It is. Yeah. It's inspirational for sure. And, I think that there's a real takeaway here, which is that ultimately, if you're not available to expose your story, you'll get taken in by, by those that are posturing. You'll get taken in by the fake. You won't notice the authenticity if you're not noticing yours. Like, you don't notice your story, you get hooked by other people's story. And in a world that artificial intelligence is becoming more and more valuable to all of us. It becomes more and more important that we can discern the fake, but it starts with us, if you know your story is one thing. If you watch them, just look at them in real time, you're not going to play along, and if you don't know your own voice of control, you are going to get hooked by other people's control, right? Like if you don't know what it sounds like, the injustice or the narcissism or in you, then absolutely you'll get hooked by it out there. And like currently in this moment in time, the global economy is shifting. Some of this is very, very essential shifts. I mean, the direction of the global economy has been, non-sustainable and not healthy. So it needs to shift. But it doesn't mean that it's a story of lack and limitation. But a ton of people are screaming recession, global recession, and so many people that have not exposed their own lack and limitation, right? Who have not exposed it are hooked, just hooked, and then you're going to walk past abundance in every opportunity. If you are so hooked by a story of there's not enough, it's all falling apart, the sky is falling, then you will miss the opportunity for abundance every single time.
And miss reality, miss the moment, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what exposure does. It brings out these subtle or not so subtle stories out of their hiding places, bringing it into the light, and then it can be seen by awareness or by presence or source. And then the seeing is what, we've been saying that this whole episode, the seeing is what pops it instantly. Poof. And then you laugh about it and it's lighter and it's funnier and the moment is wonderful.
Yeah, there's so many people that are clinging to the story of recession rather than abundance. And I have a lot of friends that are really defending the story, film is dead and there's no work here. Whereas it's not my experience. There's a lot more availability to abundance, and it's something I stand in and cultivate. And so that's my experience right now. There's work, there's film work. So yeah, my experience is of abundance and opportunity. And I feel like there's like a little milieu of people shouting, film is dead, but all they're doing is like just facing a different direction. So they're kind of standing in a room, like right into the corner, being like, there's no space, there's just wall. And it's like, no, my love, just turn around.
Yeah. And I've heard that, for those of you who are available to turn around and actually expose, you could come join us at retreat. You can come join us at retreat with a ninja-like teacher, but warning, don't come if exposure feels like a slap in your face. That's all we have to say for this week. We are looking forward to meeting you again next week. Much love. Bye.
Bye, decoders.
Thank you for listening. We obviously love hearing what you think. Your feedback helps us make a better show for you to listen to. So feel free to comment, and you can do it at Facebook, which is the Humans Decoded podcast. And if you're not on social, you can always email any questions to us at outreach@kirantrace.com. And thanks for listening. We love you.